Welcome to the deep dive.
So, I think it's fair to say that for almost any professional in the 21st century, the landscape of success has just changed dramatically.
It really has.
I mean, what got you that promotion 10 years ago? Pure analysis, strict logic, being the person who just knew the most stuff. It just doesn't carry the same weight anymore.
Not at all. The rules are shifting under our feet.
And the source material we're looking at today suggests that the skills of the future are, well, they're probably not what you'd expect.
That's absolutely right. We've sort of been living through the twilight of the information age. So our mission today is to do a deep dive into Daniel H. Pink's framework, A Whole New Mind.
A classic.
It is. And it argues that the future belongs to people who possess 6 specific conceptual senses. So we really need to uncover why these creative, artistic, more holistic skills, the right brain stuff, are suddenly the most valuable.
Yeah, so when we talk about this shift, we're really talking about a move from one way of thinking to another. For the longest time, the premium was on what the book calls L-directed thinking. L-directed, yeah. So that's your logical, sequential, spreadsheet and code kind of analysis. Very linear.
And now we're moving into an era of R-directed thinking.
Exactly. And art-directed thinking is all about the big picture. It's holistic. It's about seeing connections, understanding context, and synthesizing ideas instead of just breaking them down into parts.
So we're not throwing logic out the window.
Not at all. But the real value is shifting to the skills that use that logic to create something. Something new or beautiful or genuinely meaningful.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this, we have to look at the historical timeline the source lays out. It really charts where society puts its economic value.
It's a very clean, 4-stage progression. We started, of course, with the agriculture era.
Where the farmer was the key worker.
Right. Value was in the land.
Yeah.
Then that led straight into the industry era, which rewarded the skills of the factory laborer.
Efficiency, repetition, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. And then, most recently, we've all been living in the information era. This is the one that defined value through data and analysis.
And that elevated the knowledge worker. This is the analyst, the paralegal, the coder who manages these huge, complex data sets.
And that's exactly where the problem is now. The core functions of that knowledge worker, calculation, routine coding, sequential processing, are facing what the source calls a triple threat.
Okay, what's the triple threat?
First, you have automation, which can handle all the routine data crunching. Then you have outsourcing, which can do standardized tasks cheaper somewhere else.
Right.
And finally, there's abundance. We are just drowning in information, which ironically makes raw data more valuable than real insight.
So if the very things that made you successful yesterday can now be done by a machine or someone overseas for less money, the next step has to be different.
It has to be, and that's the conceptual era.
Which demands a whole new kind of professional role, the creator and the empathy giver. We have to focus on things you can't just hand off to an algorithm.
Exactly. We stop being just processors of information and we start becoming designers of experience. And the future really belongs to those who can master these 6 aptitudes: design, story, symphony, empathy, play, and meaning.
These are the skills that can't be automated away.
They're deeply human, and they're our best defense against these forces of change.
All right, let's start with that first essential sense, design. For a lot of us, I think design is just the pretty stuff. The marketing brochure, the colors on a website.
The glossy finish, yeah. But the sources really push us to see design as a core part of function and value. It's elevated from just being decoration to being the central way you stand out.
How so?
Well, think about it. If every company can offer similar features at a similar price, the deciding factor becomes the elegance, the usability, the thoughtfulness of the design.
I'm thinking of that quote from Richard Koshlik from the Art Center College of Design. He called the designer the future alchemist.
It's not a metaphor, really. They transform the mundane into something magical, something people actually want to use.
Which suggests that pretty much every professional role now needs some design thinking. I'm remembering that line from Roger Martin at the Rotman Management School.
Oh, the one about business people.
Yes. He said, business people do not need to understand designers better. They need to become designers.
That's a powerful idea.
So what does that mean in practice? How does a financial analyst become a designer?
It means they stop focusing only on the raw accuracy of the numbers and start focusing on the usability of the insights from those numbers.
Okay.
It means you present that quarterly report not as 50 pages of spreadsheets, but as a compelling visual story that helps a leader make a decision quickly and clearly. You make information not just correct, but consumable.
And beautiful. Which brings us to that crucial link between aesthetics and function. I love that quote from Don Norman, the engineer.
Attractive things work better.
Exactly. It seems so simple, but it's profound.
It is, because it pushes back against that old industrial idea that beauty is just fluff. There's this great line from a furniture designer, Anna Castelli-Ferrieri. She argues, "It is not true that what is useful is beautiful."
She flips it.
She flips it completely. What is beautiful is what is useful. When something is designed well, it reduces confusion, it reduces friction, it genuinely makes life better.
And the source gives these really stark visual examples, right? It shows something simple like a beautifully designed toilet brush.
A sign that someone cared, even about the most basic object.
And contrast that with a disastrously complex, just terribly laid out ballot paper.
And that ballot paper example is so important. When design fails in a critical process like voting, the confusion it creates can literally stall a democracy. It's not a small thing.
So that quote from Paul Smith isn't an exaggeration at all. He said, design, correctly applied, can improve life, create jobs, and make people happy. Not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing at all. It reduces stress, increases efficiency, whether you're looking at a report or casting a vote.
Okay, so if design is how we make things attractive and usable, the next skill, aptitude 2, story, is how we make them memorable and meaningful.
Story is basically the human operating system. There's a cognitive scientist, Roger C. Schenck, who makes this really dramatic claim.
What's that?
He says, humans are ideally created to understand stories, not logic, which means the logical argument is always second to the story you put it in.
So if you can't wrap your data in a compelling story, that data is probably just going to be forgotten.
Almost certainly. And that's a huge challenge to the old information age mindset, which was always lead with the data, lead with the facts.
But when you look back, Ursula K. Le Guin pointed out that many great societies did not use the wheel. But there is no society that did not tell stories.
It's our most ancient tool for making sense of the world, and it goes way beyond just marketing or entertainment. A family doctor, Howard Brody, connects story directly to healing.
How does that work?
He says, story is the way humans understand what happens to them when they are sick. He argues that a doctor's ability to heal is tied directly to their ability to understand the patient's whole story.
Not just the data points, the symptoms.
Exactly. If you only see the symptoms, but you miss the narrative of their life, their stress, their fears, you're likely to miss the real problem.
That idea of connecting all these different pieces of information, that feels like a perfect bridge to aptitude 3, symphony.
It is. If story is about building a linear narrative, symphony is about seeing the entire landscape. It's the ability to synthesize, to connect the dots that other people miss, to see the pattern.
When you're drowning in data, symphony is what saves you.
It's your life raft. It's that ability described in William Gibson's novel, pattern recognition. The protagonist, Case Pollard, she just says, what I do is recognize patterns. I try to recognize patterns before anyone else realizes them.
And that's the key to innovation, right? It's about linking ideas from fields that you wouldn't normally connect.
That's why metaphor is so important here. The choreographer, Twyla Tharp, said, metaphor is the bloodstream in all forms of art. A metaphor forces you to see one thing as another, which is pure art-directed thinking.
It's about seeing the forest, not just the trees. There's that great joke from Sid Caesar that the source mentions.
Oh, about the wheel.
Yeah. The person who invented the wheel is an idiot. The person who invented the 3 other wheels is the genius.
It's perfect, because the genius isn't the single isolated idea. It's the ability to see the whole system, the context, the application. A person with symphony sees the whole car, not just one gear.
Okay, so if story is how we share experience, the next aptitude, number 4, empathy, is how we actually absorb and respond to the experiences of other people. And in an age of human-centered everything, this feels non-negotiable.
Empathy is the ultimate irreplaceable skill. A computer can process all the routine data, but the real value is in understanding the subtle, nonverbal needs of another person.
The customer, the team member, the patient.
All of them. And it's completely redefined leadership. It's not just about giving orders based on logic anymore.
Right. Oprah Winfrey said, leadership is about empathy, about the ability to understand and reach out to people with the goal of inspiring or empowering their lives.
And in a world with remote teams, a manager needs empathy just to notice if someone on their team is struggling. You can't see it on a spreadsheet.
Meryl Streep just called it the greatest human gift.
And it is. Empathy means you have to set aside your own analytical view and truly try to see the world from your client's perspective. That's how you design a better product or tell a story that actually connects.
Let's move to aptitude 5. Play. Now, this seems like the most counterintuitive skill on the list for professional success. We're all trained that work is serious and logical. How does play generate market value?
Well, we have to redefine what we mean by play. This isn't about being idle, it's about passionate, investigative experimentation. Albert Einstein himself said, play is the highest form of investigation.
But doesn't that just sound like corporate jargon for unpaid brainstorming time? How do you convince a skeptical listener that play is a necessity, not just a nice-to-have luxury?
Because the alternative is stagnation. The source quotes Brian Sutton-Smith, who gives us this incredible definition. He says, the antonym of play is not work, but depression.
Wow.
He says play means passionate activity, joy, and commitment. When our work loses that element of passionate investigation, our motivation just plummets and innovation grinds to a halt.
So play is actually the fuel for creativity. It makes the other skills work. Pat Kane predicted that play in the 21st century will be similar to work for industrial society, namely the main way to know, do, and create value.
It's not the break from the work. In many ways, it is the work. Which brings us to the final and maybe the most important aptitude. Number 6, meaning.
The search for purpose.
Exactly. Once your basic material needs are met, once you're making cool products and connecting with people, the ultimate quest, both professionally and personally, is for purpose.
The Dalai Lama frames this so simply. He says, I believe our main goal in life is to seek happiness. I think the main drive in our lives is toward happiness.
But the happiness we're talking about here isn't just, simple pleasure, it's deep fulfillment. Jacob Needleman drew a line between the two.
What was his take?
He said, we are born for meaning, not for pleasure, except for the pleasure that is in a meaning. A paycheck gives you temporary pleasure, but deriving meaning from the impact of your job, that's a pleasure that lasts.
And that's something you can't outsource or automate. You can't hire someone to find meaning for you. Dr. Robert Firestone confirms that. You won't find the meaning of life from what others write. You will only find it by giving meaning to life from within yourself.
And in this conceptual age, you see more and more professionals choosing employers whose mission actually aligns with their own search for purpose.
So we've covered a massive shift here. The analytical, logical expertise that really defined the information age. It's just not the trump card anymore.
It's not. Success now really hinges on cultivating these 6 our-brain senses: design, story, symphony, empathy, play, and meaning.
The knowledge worker was a specialist, an expert in a silo. But the conceptual age demands a synthesist, the person who can combine that expertise with a deep human understanding.
You have to be able to design a presentation, tell a story about the data, see patterns across different fields, empathize with your audience, use play to innovate.
And tie it all back to a shared sense of meaning.
And this final synthesis, this act of connecting our work to our deeper conceptual drives, it takes us to this profound level of purpose. There's this incredible quote from Dr. Lauren Artris.
What did she say?
We are not mortal creatures on a spiritual path, but spiritual creatures on a human path.
And if you translate that into the professional world, it means our work shouldn't just be a logical, monetary transaction. It should be an expression of those R-directed drives, our need to create, connect, and find meaning.
Which really raises a final critical question for you, the listener. How often do you consciously set aside professional energy for these 6 senses, not just for the logical tasks?
If you start treating your pursuit of design, story, and meaning as fundamental business requirements, just like hitting your quarterly numbers.
How quickly will that change not just your professional strategy, but your entire path toward fulfillment? It demands that you evolve beyond the spreadsheet and start embracing a whole new mind.